Well, welcome everybody. This is Uncle Garrett. I hope you're having a great day today because today I have a special guest, Gloria.
Hi.
Gloria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Gloria, and I'm a retired homeschool mom. I have two children who have gone from kindergarten all the way through high school, and now they've graduated and on their own.
Awesome. So, as you might have guessed, we're going to talk about homeschooling a little bit. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? What are some answers? What are answers to common questions? So this will be a fun conversation. Thank you so much for joining me, Gloria.
Thanks, Garrett.
And can you, so you've had two kids now, right? K through 12.
That's it. My youngest daughter we graduated her a year early. She's graduated when she was, I think it was 16. It's been so long now. I can't remember if she was 16 or 17, but I think it was 16.
Right. Yeah. So, what are the benefits of homeschooling? Why should people consider it?
Because you get to choose what your kids are going to do. You get to be with them all day long, which is a positive and a negative. So I guess benefits of homeschooling are kind of, they're both. And you get to choose what you're going to do. We had resources that were available in our family that allowed us to do some of the homeschooling. And not everybody has the same resources that we had, but other homeschooling moms have different resources, or homeschooling families, I should say. So I enjoyed being with my kids. I wanted to be with my kids. I thought that I could teach. I had actually had a deep desire to teach from the time I was little. My mom was a teacher, and I thought I would be able to teach. I was very good in school. I thought it would be pretty easy to teach somebody else. It turns out it's not. So being able to teach is definitely a gift, but I know one of my friends who was in special ed when she was in high school, and she homeschooled all three of her kids till graduation as well.
Wow.
So it doesn't necessarily matter how good you are in school or in those subjects. What matters is, do you care about your kids? Are you willing to do what it takes for them to learn how to read and write and do math? Are you willing to teach them the things that you know without getting mad at them? I couldn't. I got mad at them, so that was not a good thing. One of the many regrets. But I've also come to see that even people who put their kids in school still have mommy guilt later on. They're not sure, did I do right by them? Should I have homeschooled them and not put them in school? So it really, whatever choices you end up making, you're going to end up needing to, I don't really like the term own, but just accept that you made the best choices you could with the resources and the knowledge that you had at that time.
Right. That's very inspiring. Yeah, that's so nice. So here's some common concerns that parents might have. Like the most common concern I hear is, well, won't my kids be unsocialized? They're missing the socialization in school, and you're depriving them of that, Gloria.
Yeah, I heard that a lot. And then 2020 and 2021 happened, and I thought, where are all of those people concerned about socialization now when all of these kids are now at home and learning online and not getting the socialization? Come on, folks. You know, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth here as far as that goes.
Right.
There are some advantages and disadvantages, of course, but that's in anything. I was talking to my son last night about it. He turns 27 this month, and he was saying that he really would have liked to have had more socialization when he was younger and had more opportunities. What he doesn't know was that when he ever had those socialization experiences, like when he did a baseball camp for a week one time, he spent most of the time talking to the coach and not the kids. And he wasn't around the kids. He wasn't forced to talk to those kids. And so when he was in other situations, when he was with other kids his own age, he didn't know how to relate to them either. And so he ended up being a leader, but he saw the leadership was not doing a good job of leadership either. So it's been very interesting to see his progression over the years as far as that goes. So yes, socialization, but what is it you want your kids to socialize? How do you want them to act? Don't you want them to act more like adults anyway, or do you really want them to act like kids? Especially when you're talking about, young homeschooling. Oh, if I keep my kid home when they're in elementary school, they're not going to know how to react to kids their own age, kind of thing. Well, I mean, my son is kind of a classic example of that. But at the same time, what has he done since then? There are some choices he's made that have been very good, and he's had opportunities as a result. And then there's been choices he's made that are bad. I think that's kind of the way that any parent feels about their kid, no matter what they end up doing. So the socialization, I justified it when they were little, saying, well, I want them to be adults anyway, so why shouldn't they be around adults to be able to learn how to react?
So from a young age, they related more to adults than to their peers.
That's it.
Right.
And, there's not anything necessarily wrong with that in a way. It's just that what happens when those older people let them down or are no longer there. How are they going to then step up and do stuff? And be the adults that they're made to be? They're going to have to figure that out, but that's going to happen whether they go to school or not.
Right. Interesting. So, what about the case of a lot of parents feel like we really need two incomes? I just can't afford to take the time to homeschool my kids.
Well, that's a very valid concern. I mean, unfortunately, that's the way some things are. There was a period of time there where I was wondering, well, should I go leave the home and start looking for work? My husband was out of work and wasn't finding anything for about 6 months. What should I do? Turned out to be, when I finally did the numbers in my head about how much I was going to make, how much I was going to actually need to, in order to be able to, was me working outside the home actually going to be a benefit to the family? And at that point, I decided to make a decision and say, I will stay home and I will make bean soup. And so that's what I did. I stayed home and I made bean soup. And we had bean soup for a number of years. And by bean soup, I mean there wasn't money for meat. And unfortunately, that ended up getting me into some health issues as a result of that. So it was not a good thing as far as health goes. But it was a conscious decision that I made. Right. So if you actually take the time...
So even you were down to zero income at some point while you were homeschooling.
Yeah.
But you still...
Somehow we made it work. That's it. I still don't... Yeah, it's a whole other story.
Right.
But there are things that you can do. Homeschooling can be very expensive, and it can also be very inexpensive. So much of it depends on where you get your information from. Who are you going to listen to? If you're going to listen to somebody who has unlimited income and can buy any of the curriculums and all, extra curriculums don't make your experiences any better sometimes.
Right.
It takes more ingenuity. It takes more thinking outside the box. And if you yourself have been public schooled into being in a box, oh, sweetheart, it's not easy.
Right,
and that was me. I was public schooled into a box and thought I knew what the box was. I didn't have a clue.
Right. Because you had this idea of what school ought to be, and so you tried to copy that.
That's it.
And that doesn't necessarily work.
And then I thought, well, I don't need to do exactly like public school. I can do it this way. Well, some of that was a good thing and some of it wasn't. I'm experimenting on my kids, and my kids are only kids for a particular season of life. So I didn't know if it was, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm getting off on other topics right now that are suddenly cropping in my head because homeschooling encompasses everything. It is a way of life. It was my whole life for so long. And then suddenly, now I'm getting off on another topic. Suddenly, when my daughter graduated, she was the youngest, and when she graduated, it went from 100% mom to 0% mom in a night. That's a huge thing, but I don't know what it's like, as far as public school goes. I'm assuming that parents
Right.
feel kind of the same way, but
Right.
that's a big change. So anyway, these are
Yeah.
some.
So some parents might think, I don't know if I can teach my kids. There are some subjects I'm just not good at. How could I possibly teach them if I don't know the subjects?
That's one of the benefits of homeschooling. You get to learn, to be quite honest.
Uh-huh.
One of the best ways to teach is to, one of the best ways to learn is to teach. So
I'd argue the best way,
excellent.
hands down.
That's it. And so being willing to learn yourself, which I didn't realize how much I needed to learn, is one of the biggest benefits to homeschooling. Just, I ended up making it sometimes more about me and my learning than it was about how this is going to affect my kids and what my kids are supposed to learn out of that. I would get so excited over some topics and they would just be like, this is crazy. Why are you doing this? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So part of your job as a parent, as a homeschooling parent, isn't necessarily to teach your children everything that it is. Some of your job as a homeschooling parent is to find others who can teach them. So if there's a particular subject that you don't feel that's appropriate, you don't necessarily know who's going to come across your path who can actually help, whether it's handwriting or a mathematics or an English or a writing class, or even something as, being outdoors and learning botany or, something that your kid might be interested in. You get to learn it as well. And let your kid teach you occasionally, some of the stuff they're learning. But you also, but that is, so as a homeschooling parent, to reiterate, is not necessarily to do all of the teaching, but to be a conduit or a provider or a resource for your child,
Right.
so that they can get then
Right.
the teaching that they
Yeah.
are looking for.
And I might add to that, I haven't had children, but I would have loved for a parent to approach me and say, hey, my kid is having problems with mathematics or science, because that's my wheelhouse, right? And I would have loved to have helped, but, no one's ever asked me, but why not? you know?
Exactly.
So
That's-
I just feel that I'm probably not the only one, I
Mm-hmm.
feel that there's a vast untapped resource that parents aren't taking advantage of.
Or it can be a plumber, or it can be an electrician, or it can be a house builder, or a general contractor, or the trades as well. That one of the people that my husband ended up, I think this is right, they actually started a business making, was it pet coffins? That for local people. So the kid in high school started his own business.
Right,
And was
right.
doing things like that too.
Right.
So it was, there's lots of opportunities, and everybody has different resources.
Right. Yeah. So some of the questions parents might have are, my kids actually want to go to school because that's where their friends are. They want to be with their friends at school. What do you say to that?
That's a really good question. So much of it depends on, are the friends decent friends? Are that's a whole other topic as
Right.
far as that goes. Are the teachers decent teachers? That's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Are the future unknown teachers decent?
Valid. Yes, absolutely. And do you want your kid to be pigeonholed into is that environment really going to be what helps your kid thrive and think outside the box and to be a problem solver? Or is the environment just going to stifle your child and put them into a box? Do you want your child to be in a box, or do you want them to think outside the box?
Yeah.
What is it you as a parent really want for your kid?
Right.
And
Yeah.
people get to choose that.
I sometimes think of the good educational system we have is kind of a meat grinder, where they normalize everyone. They're trained to be worker bees. They're trained, even though when I was in school, I heard from multiple teachers, question authority. But if you question them, well, that was another
now.
story.
That's right.
So some parents think that, well, my school system is actually pretty good. It's highly rated, and they can probably do a better job than me.
A good teacher is worth their weight in gold. So it's not that I have anything against teachers, but are you sure that your kid's going to get those good teachers? And like you said earlier, Garrett, what are the teachers going to be in the future as far as for your child?
Right.
We don't know. We don't know the future.
Right.
We don't even know if homeschooling's really going. There's so many changes even in the homeschooling community. They want the ubiquitous they want to bring homeschooling parents. They want children to be wards of the state. They do not want children to be wards of their parents. And that people have seen, I think, for a long time, but I think more people are waking up to that. And it is infiltrating the homeschool community. It is infiltrating the homeschool community. And there are powers that be, including do-good parents, that think they're doing right when they don't see how what they're doing and what they're bringing in is actually harming their students, their children, as well as others in the homeschooling community. So there's a lot of stuff up in the air right now, and people, even the whole idea of school choice, I will recommend people listen to somebody like Charlotte Iserbit and find out what she thought of homeschool choice many years ago, back in the 70s and 80s. She's highly recommend her. I don't do her justice. I have a good friend who knows a lot more about her and stuff. So, but I would just recommend if you're thinking about homeschooling, check out Charlotte Iserbit. It's like drinking out of a fire hose because of what she has seen and all of the documentation that she has of what has happened to our education system. And homeschool choice is just a Trojan horse for the homeschool community and for those who do want to have
so
choice.
People are trying to systematize homeschooling and control curriculums of the homeschooled in the same way they control other schools.
I don't know if it's necessarily curriculum. Well, through the online schools, people who says, "Oh, we'll homeschool with online schools." No, that's not that is being part of the meat grinder.
Right.
And it is a
probably
very poor
not great
education.
Part of the
No,
meat grinder.
it is not, because your kids treat it as a game. What they view in video becomes a game. If they don't actually interact with you and actually tell you, and you watch a video together and you think that your kid knows everything that's in that video that was said. No, they have to digest it by talking to you about it. So if you think they're learning through videos, you are deluding yourself.
Right.
We might be able to do that as adults. You know, how many people have gone to YouTube to find out how to change the oil in their car or something like that? Sure, absolutely. But that's not the way your kid learns best. Your kid learns through actually talking to you about it and through the back and forth. What they're actually learning in the videos, you may not actually want them to learn, because the stuff that's in the videos, the subliminal stuff that's there, that's the intangibles. It's not part of the intangibles is my parent doesn't know what this is. My parent can't teach this. My parent doesn't understand, is not going to understand this. You have to talk with them about it, digest that with them. Their books that they're reading, their videos that they're watching. Learn it with them and find out what they're really learning, because what matters is what comes from you. And if all your and the other untangible is, I guess it's what I said, but it's like somebody else is the expert. So they're coming to respect the expert more than they're respecting you as a parent.
Trust the official expert.
Exactly. And we've seen how well that's worked recently.
Right.
So those, when you read Charlotte Iserbyt's book, you see that they have wanted, the ubiquitous they, have wanted kids to not have a teacher in the classroom. They have wanted the kids to learn off something like an iPad since they put it out back in the early 1900s. This whole thing that we have experienced over the last 3 years has actually shown that could actually happen.
Right.
And to see that these were documents from the early 1900s that said that's the ideal way that they want kids to learn, that is, in my vernacular, stinking scary.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the movie Ready Player One.
I did.
It starts out with a boy whose only mode of learning was through his iPad or what have you, and except it was set in the future, right? So it was more of an encompassing virtual experience, but still.
And a grooming and a propaganda and let's just get you ready for this.
Right.
That there's something to do with how with having the money follow the child, and how that is a then pull for then, if you're getting money from the state as a parent, there are going to be requirements that you're going to have to do as a homeschooling parent.
Right.
So it is a carrot on a stick to get you to get back into the fold.
It sounds more like a Trojan horse.
Exactly.
Right. So all this push of, vouchers and sponsoring children and even diverting funds towards homeschoolers is really a Trojan horse to control the curriculum, the system.
That's it. And I don't know what strings they're going to end up putting on. I know that like in some of the public school systems, there were certain monies that they got due to the lockdowns so these schools then had to put so much money into the DEI or the DIE curriculums that they needed to do, which was part of getting money for the lockdown money.
Right.
And so when money's involved, there's always a Trojan horse. It is a Trojan horse.
There's no such thing as funds without strings.
No.
And those funds come from you originally, right?
That's right.
So they take currency from us and then hand it back with strings.
That's right. And then they don't give you the whole amount back, and you're not getting other money.
And not even close.
No. But as a young parent, you don't understand that. You don't have the experiences to have seen how this has happened before. And so, and if the elders or somebody who's been through it is trying to tell you something, but like me, can't explain it very well, doesn't have all of the particulars, doesn't have, I'm not an expert in it, I haven't read all of the legal jargons and all of the, I don't know how to explain it. I just know in my gut something's not right. Charlotte Iserbyt has the information on that. She's dead.
Yeah.
She's not here anymore.
Yeah.
But what she has said before is still valid.
Right.
And so you have young parents are completely overwhelmed by being a young parent. Everything is new. You've never been, very few, if any,
Right.
have ever been responsible for another human being for everything, you know,
Right.
unless there are certain exceptions, but very few.
Right.
As a young homeschooling mom myself, I got to the point where I would not read anything except a particular book if I was going to read about a particular topic, because I wanted to read what was true. I didn't want to read what somebody else said was true. And so there's always those bits of things that somebody is always going to tell you something wrong. And as a young parent, myself included, new young parents now, you don't have the time. You don't have the
Right.
resources.
Yeah.
And if you don't have somebody who's really looking out for you and is able to help guide you in some of those ways that you are willing to listen to, that can actually reach you and in a way that makes sense to you,
Yeah.
you are going to get snookered, period.
Right.
It is going
Right.
to happen.
So I guess your advice is to try and pull on experienced resources, the people who have gone through homeschooling, and maximize those resources, right?
That's it. And if somebody, including myself, says something that it may spark an idea for you, it may be right, it may actually be wrong for you because of the resources that you have available. So just because somebody says something, don't take it hook, line, and sinker. Just be willing to ferret out and look for that. What is it that you need to do that's going to be best for your family? And just because it was right for somebody else, including me, doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for you. Mm-hmm. And parents, it is really hard to be a parent. And sometimes there are other parents or other elders or others who don't even have kids that can step in and say, well, I know exactly what this child needs. They need, and then they fill in the blank. They may be right, but they also may be wrong for that family. Mm-hmm. We as elders should be supporting parents and giving them the information they need. So I guess I need to do more research myself so I can better relay what I'm trying to say as far as Charlotte Iserbyt goes. Be willing to support the parents so that they can parent their own children. Mm-hmm. We should not, and I feel this very strongly to the tips of my toes, we should not be going in, nobody should be going in and taking children from parents, period. Mm-hmm. That is, to me, is just, that should not be. But the parents should be supported so that the parents can then parent their own children. Now, parents need to step up and be adults too. We can't take all of their responsibility away from them. They need to also be willing to do what's necessary, to make the sacrifices they need to make for their own families. But taking kids away from parents is just one of those slippery slopes that was another Trojan horse. Mm-hmm. And it's to make children wards of the state, and that is wrong.
Right. And children's lives, even in cases of abuse, rarely improved as wards of the state.
And when you realize how much experimentation has been done on foster children in certain industrial complexes, you realize that there was a reason that these children were taken away, and it was not for their own benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard people talk about unschooling, and I found it kind of a curious thing. I'm wondering what you think about it.
Yeah, it is curious. I mean, there are some people that can do a really good job of it, especially if they have resources like animals that the kids are taking care of, and they're working on the farm, or they're working in the family business, plumbing, electrical, construction, things like that. Because you learn so much doing those things that you will probably, that when you're actually practically doing something, you learn a lot more sometimes than you would if you're sitting on your butt learning about it, on a piece of paper with a pencil. So there are benefits to unschooling as far as those types of things go, working in the family business and such. However, if unschooling is is the parent's lazy way, that's would have been my experience. That's what I would have used it. I would have used it as an excuse to not do any schooling with my kids, and to not teach them the things that they needed to learn. And so it really depends on if it's done well or if it's not, and then it gets back to,
Right.
Are the parents the ones that are in charge of their kids or not?
Right.
Or are they just
Right.
wards of the state?
Right. Is unschooling, does that mean they're watching TV and playing video games?
Exactly.
And I've actually heard parents say that. My children learned to read because they were playing video games, and they wanted to read some introduction on the video game, and the parents said, "Well, too bad you can't read this. This is very interesting." And so then they learned to read, and it sounds like a success story. Maybe they learned to read then.
But then do the kids just treat it as a game? Is life then just a game? And when they're learning on the video, anyway, yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess.
Are they really learning to read?
That's it.
Well,
And what is it they're learning to read? Are they learning to read so that they can find out about the world around them, or are they just learning to read so that they can understand these particular words on the video
Right,
screen?
right.
We want our kids to do certain things. Like I wanted my kids to be able to read and write and do math. Well, my kids did pretty well with math and with reading, but when it came to writing, one of my kids, I could not get that child to write. And that became a hang up with me. And I couldn't get over that. And I didn't get them the help that they needed. And I didn't know how to change my instructions to help them do what they needed to do and be willing to have the experience of years of teaching to know that maybe this was a phase, maybe there's something else I needed to do, and I didn't get that help that I needed at that time, and so it was a hang up as a result. And we're all kind of worse off as a result of that, because that becomes the hang up then for future conversations with this child as
right,
well.
right.
So homeschooling reveals a lot about who you are as a person and as a parent. And the parent and how you are as a parent reflects on who you are as a person. So
I'd imagine you'd actually discover a lot about yourself
you
in
do.
the homeschooling process.
Yeah, and stuff you don't want to know most of the time. That's that way with parenting, period. But you're right. That is exactly what happens.
Right.
And you have to be willing to do that. Eating humble pie and getting the help you need when you need it. And
Yeah.
being willing to ask for help when you need it.
So with the discussion with you, I felt like I've gotten the idea that homeschooling is like parenting on steroids.
I've never
Or
been on steroids,
parenting
but
plus
I would.
plus.
That's it. That's it. That is
Yeah.
all it is.
It's parenting and then some, right?
Yes. And most of the problems that we have as a homeschooling parent really aren't about homeschooling. They're about parenting.
Right, right. Yeah. And as I've said a lot on this channel, your worth as a human isn't so much about your virtue at any given time. It's about your trajectory, and your dedication to always learning and always improving yourself. So
Homeschooling is a way to get you there.
Right,
Huge
growth experience,
That's
right?
it.
For
That's it.
both you and your children.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Gloria. It was so much fun to talk with you, and thank you for being our guest on Uncle Garrett Channel.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've never had an opportunity to kind of put all of these things together this way, so I really do appreciate it. You ask great questions.
Thank you. And as always, I want to ask everybody to please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Help Gloria's message get out there, and help our hard work, and hopefully this will benefit many parents.
Hope
All
so.
right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.